Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. I thought I would do a quick benchtop and discuss the differences between the Smith & Wesson M&P12 shotgun and the Kel-Tec KSG. Alright, really cool stuff. And as a bonus, we actually have the Kel-Tec KS7 as well, which is the single stack or single mag tube variant of the Kel-Tec KSG. These guns are very similar and in some ways different in many ways, so we're going to discuss some of the differences and similarities. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at SDI for supporting today's video. If you are looking to get into gunsmithing, they are definitely your go-to source for distance learning. They've got some great curriculum, awesome instructors, wonderful programs, gunsmithing, reloading. You can learn how to fly drones. So jumpstart your career in the gun world with SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, and tell them that we sent you. Check out the link below for more information and let them know that Eric said hello. All right, we filmed a video recently on our Smith & Wesson M&P12 shotgun here, and the folks at Smith & Wesson were nice enough to send one of these out when they first came out so we could get a good first look at it and everything. And it is a great shotgun, very robust, very well made, and really does ring true with Smith & Wesson's typical quality that they're known for. And one thing I can applaud Smith & Wesson on is they do know how to do a product release in terms of getting a new gun out. They always test them really well, and they always do a great job of getting it right, pretty much right out the gate. I did think that it was relatively odd when I first discovered that Smith & Wesson was releasing a shotgun. I expected a myriad of different things, but certainly not something so close to the KSG, an already existing design. George over at KelTec is a brilliant guy, and they always come up with so many great things at KelTec, so many awesome ideas. We filmed a very similar video to this one, comparing the KelTec KSG to Smith & Wesson's FPC as well. So again, that's two instances where Smith & Wesson, I'm not going to say that they bummed off of KelTec, but I mean, come on, the guns are very similar. The form and function of both the guns are very similar. Now the FPC is a side folder, but if you want to check out that video, in that particular one, I actually wound up preferring the KelTec Sub 2000 to the FPC from Smith & Wesson. Now, before I give you my answer in this particular video, let's have a look at the KSG. So the KSG, this particular gun has been around quite a while. It's a fantastic piece of hardware. They've held up very good. They are reasonably well made. The price on them is very affordable. They are considerably more affordable than the Smith & Wesson variant. We are going to go through some details on how each of these operate in a little bit more detail as we go. This one's topped off with an old school Aimpoint M68 that I painted to match this particular gun. I've had this KSG for probably, 10 years at this point, and it's held up quite well. And I can't say that I've ever had a single malfunction out of it. Now, that's not to say that I haven't seen other KSGs over the years that have had their share of little teething issues. I've seen some that have gotten maybe a little fallout or crap in the chambers that can cause them to not really want to extract well. The primary extraction is a little weak on the KSG. You have to really rack it hard to get those shells to pop out of there. But once you understand the manual of arms and how to use it, it's a very robust gun. And they're very usable guns. Now, this particular one is actually outfitted with Atlas Defense's purpose-built KSG suppressor. This particular one, it just has a quick detach mount that Joe over there designed for the KSG. And this is a KSG-specific suppressor. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the suppressor off. And he actually makes a standoff brake for door breaching and stuff for this particular gun. Now, I don't have that to show you right here, but without the suppressor, you can obviously see that the length is very similar on the two guns when we compare the M&P12 to the KSG. So very similar, almost identical amount of rail space on both guns. The overall form and function of the guns is pretty similar in terms of what they're trying to accomplish here. Now the KS7, I'll just quickly mention this one. This is essentially the single stack version, and it's much lighter and handier, and arguably, okay, I know this is a terrible comparison to make, but if I'm comparing the M&P12 to the KSG, I almost prefer this gun more than the other two because it's also a lot lighter. So let's talk about the weight. All right, so I jotted down some notes here, just a little cheat sheet here. So the M&P is definitely the heavy hitter out of all three of them. It's a lot heavier. The weight on the M&P is 8.3 pounds unloaded. The KSG weighs 6.9 pounds unloaded. The KS7 weighs 5.9 pounds unloaded. So when you compare the KS7 to the MP12, wow, that's a huge difference in weight. You're shedding quite a bit of weight going from this big behemoth down to the little single stack. Now, the only issue there is that there's no such thing as a free lunch in physics. So this little light sucker right here, it does have a considerable amount of recoil, and it will let you know when you squeeze the trigger that recoil is a, hello, I'm here. But this is a light, handy gun. All three of these are considered bullpups. When we say a bullpup, essentially it means that the action and the, let's just say the firing mechanism or whatever is behind the grip, okay? So that allows the overall nature of the gun to be much more compact. All of these guns have 18-inch barrels. But because the action is condensed in this way and the trigger is put in front of the action in this way, of course it allows it to maintain a very, very compact overall length, which is like right at around 26 inches, okay, I believe. Now, in terms of how you load and unload and shoot and use these guns, for full details on the M&P12, check out our M&P12 Smith & Wesson video, where we'll go into a lot more detail. But one thing I will say, comparing the two guns immediately, the KSG is a little bit tricky to load. Each of them obviously are identically tricky to load. However, with the KSG, you do have a very limited amount of space to get the shells in. This lever here rotates to each side to choose which magazine you're going to feed from. Now, let's just say that you're going to deploy or use a KSG in some sort of defensive situation or whatever. The way that I would treat a KSG, or even the M&P12 for that matter, and arguably I'd say even the KS7, once you're out of ammo, I don't know if I'd want to try to load this thing under stress. It'd be very difficult to perform some sort of crazy speed reload on this thing. But the added benefit is that, yes, it is a little bit difficult to load, but you have an additional magazine tube. So this gun holds like 13 shots, which is great. Okay, so it holds a reasonable amount of ammunition between the two tubes. So the idea is that when the tube is empty, you just flip the lever, and then you've got an additional magazine tube. So that's why this gun is so fat, is because there's two magazine tubes giving you double the ammunition, which is kind of cool. So I guess Smith & Wesson saw an opportunity to, let's just say improve on the design or maybe modernize the design a little bit, because the KSG's been out for quite some time, and I do think it is a fantastic gun. And I'm a little nostalgic. I kind of like the old school KSG just because I'm so used to it and because it came out of Kellgren's mind. And, this is his gun. So, of course, I'm going to respect the OG original article. But, however, just from a, anecdotal prospect, let's look at the M&P12. Now, the M&P12 is cool because you actually do have a much easier way to change the magazine. So, to switch between the magazine tubes, you just pop this right here back and forth. So, it's easy to change between magazine tubes. The mag tubes on this gun are considerably easier to load, which is nice. So that gives you something to go on there. And you do have interchangeable back straps for the grip, so it gives you a little bit more customizability with the overall form and function of the grip. I will say too that the KSG has the push button safety, whereas the M&P has an ambidextrous lever safety, very similar to what you would see on an AR variant, and located in almost the exact same position. So it's much more familiar for a wider variety of shooters. Now, some cons on the M&P12. One is the weight. It's heavy. So that would be one minor detriment, is it's considerably heavy. Also, it is considerably wider. It is a fatter gun. And when you're talking a dual mag tube gun already that has already got some girth, this particular pump area, the handguard, if you will, is considerably wider. So it's much fatter than the KSG by a very considerable margin there. You can probably see right here the difference. It's a good bit thicker. So that is probably my biggest complaint about the gun, is that it's got the big fat fore end and it's rather hefty. However, again, remember, no such thing as a free lunch in physics, right? So this gun is a little heavier, but it also soaks up the recoil a lot better. It's the perfect weight to soak up 12 gauge loads, especially in a bullpup configuration. This gun has a loaded chamber indicator. It has a much better system for loading the gun that helps you assist the shells a little better. You get a bit better feel. This action opens up to give you a bit more space to load and unload the gun. So in terms of loading the gun a little bit more comfortably and let's just say efficiently, Smith & Wesson did do a good job of making this particular shotgun considerably easier to top off and load than the KSG. But I'm not going to say a lot easier. Both of them are relatively difficult and time consuming to reload. But again, if you do have to pump 7 or 8 rounds of 12 gauge into something and then switch to the other magazine tube and you got, you know, another tube ready to go, boy, I'd be scared to imagine what situation you'd be in that you needed those extra shells, let's just say, in a direct conflict right at that moment. It's just nice to know that you have the additional capacity, the extra ammunition. When you're talking 12 gauge and sending some 12 gauge downrange, there's a lot of power, okay? Good payload, good weight, good energy, a wide variety of different loads that a 12 gauge shotgun will fire. And again, what all three of these guns accomplish that I feel is probably their most important strength between all three of them is the light, well, I'm not going to say the lightweight, the shorter length. So considerably shorter, much more maneuverable, much more compact. The M&P does come with a grip already attached on the front, so that's kind of nice. The gun does point considerably nice, and I will say also, the points that go towards the M&P12 away from the KSG, the action is much smoother. You don't have to rack it nearly as hard to get it to eject as you do the KSGs. The KSGs are known for, you know, you have to kind of manhandle them a bit. Whereby the M&P, I feel like it might be a little bit better put together in terms of the way everything operates. Everything is smoother. Everything from the slide release for the pump, you know, it moves very easy. You know, actually racking the action, it moves much easier. Every button pushes easier. The safety, you know, moves easier. It is an easier gun to manipulate overall when you look at your fine motor skills. Whereas the KSG is almost, I would say, a little cruder. It's not a bad thing, because remember, the KSG is still a considerably cheaper gun than the M&P12. I don't know if it's double the price, but it's definitely a lot more expensive. I think I've seen some of the M&P12s sell for about $1,000, maybe $1,100, something like that. Whereas sometimes you can find KSGs on sale for $5.99, sometimes cheaper. And the cool thing is, I've seen KS7s. All right, again, another vote for the single stack. I've seen KS7s on sale for like $400 barking dollars. So if you don't need the capacity of both the M&P and the KSG, you can actually just save yourself a lot of money and pick up a much lighter gun that's arguably more maneuverable and, as an added bonus, has very simple but effective iron sights and a carry handle already installed. Now, one minor detriment to this gun compared to the other two is that because you have that carry handle assembly with the iron sights and stuff, the gun is a little taller, and it does take up a little more room in a pack or something like that, or if you stow it away. However, as far as I know, the spacing, I think you can pull this carry handle off the KS7 and put a rail on it if you wish. So you could put a small red dot on there and keep the gun even more compact if you wish. And you can do those for like $400 barking dollars, which is a nice thing to have. And as you can see, I love my green guns around here. This one I Duracoated some years ago, kind of a little hide in the woods redneck camo that works out quite well. And of course you can see I have a basic mil-spec you know, AR sling on this thing from a long time ago. I like all three guns. I think they're very great. I mean, obviously I own these. They're in my collection. I have to say there are things that I like and hate about all of the different guns. The KSG in combination with the Atlas suppressor is certainly an interesting thing to have laying around. And Joe over at Atlas does a fine job with these suppressors. His mounts are amazing. And it's just a really cool thing, oh yeah, to have laying around. A suppressed KSG, if you will. So, you know, I have to put a considerable amount of points towards the KSG just because, gosh, I own a suppressed one, and it's, out of all three of these, the only one you can suppress, which is cool. So the KSG wins some points just for its OG factor and the cost. It is very affordable. I mean, it's still reliable, so don't think the KSG is not a reliable gun. It is. It just kind of has this sort of crude military-like ruggedness to it that, you know, yeah, there's, you know, it may not be the smoothest gun or maybe not even the most well-built. Yeah, you got to manhandle it a little bit. Yeah, you're going to cut your fingers loading it, but it's a great gun that will work and save your life if you need it to, of course. And the M&P, you know, if you like the concept of the KSG, but you just want something a little more refined, a little bit better made, maybe I would even say, or just something that can give you a little bit more flexibility and maybe just a little bit more comfortable to use for the usability type of aspect of it, I would say the M&P would be a choice for you. If you're willing to spend the extra money, you're going to get for what these guns are meant to do, and obviously this gun being essentially a more or less an improvement or copy of the KSG. I would say the M&P did succeed in that quite well, and that would be a better gun for you if you really love that concept enough to spend the extra money. It is a great gun. I have to say, if I had to choose between the two and I could only pick one, I would probably pick the M&P, just because it is a much better overall gun. They did really fix a lot of the minor teething issues in the original design. However, because I am nostalgic, I do love the original as well, so that's a difficult decision to make. But in my comparison video to the KSG, I'm sorry, the Sub 2000 and the FPC, I actually ended up preferring the OG Sub 2000 because of its nice, lightweight, compact nature. I find myself actually preferring, because of those heavy 12 gauge loads, the slightly heavier M&P is probably going to be my choice in this particular video. But again, as a wild card, as an addendum, the KS7 is worth looking at as well. And for what it's worth, Smith & Wesson does not make a single stack version of their M&P12 yet. I mean, maybe they will one day. But I really like this gun. I think it's fantastic, and I think a lot of people overlook this particular gun, criminally, I might add. So hopefully this pointed y'all in the right direction and gave you a little bit of information about the differences between these, and maybe a little bit of my opinion on, you know, since I own all three, I wanted to try to give you some opinion for some of you that might be looking at these particular guns. They are kind of futuristic, they're cutting edge, they're cool, they're modern. A lot of people look at these types of guns, maybe they don't know about them. So I wanted to put this video out as a service just to hopefully point y'all in the right direction. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you all had a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.